The next function we're going to look at is the index function. The index function returns a value from a lookup array. So in this case, let's just start out by typing our function and we'll see what arguments it requires. The first thing you need to give it is an array. This is where you're looking for your data from. For example, we might want to look in the name column and we want to return one of the names from that lookup array. The next element it asks for is the row number. So in this case, everything is organized in the row. So it's all in rows of one column. So now we need to tell it which row do we want. For example, if we put a 2 here, that's going to tell the function that we want the second row of this array. So in this case, the first element is Abby. The first row, rather, is Abby. The second row is Claire. So index from C5 to C10. Should actually be careful to lock this for the same reason we do it in match. Our data is usually not moving. So now the second element there is the name Claire. If instead we want the sixth element, it is also the name Claire. Right? We see Claire in the sixth position. Now if we switch this to the first position, now we see Abby. So within this array, Abby is the first position. Let's go ahead and make that an input here. We'll call that the position. We want that to be 1. And we'll go ahead and replace that with C1. So now we can see as we change the position, our index returns a different value. Right? So this is the case where we were looking at a single row, right? Or rather, all the data is organized in rows in a single column. We can also look alternatively at data across columns all in a single row. So for example, we can change our index now. Let's change it to those 6 cells. So now we have it organized horizontally. And in this case, what I'm going to do is ask for the row number equal to 3. And let's see what happens. In this case, we get Claire. And what's happening here is it's asking for the third element of this 6-element array. So 1 would give me the number 2. If I use 4, it should give me Alabama or AL. So when your array is organized horizontally, that first argument just tells the function which ordered number of that array do you want to return. All right, so that's how you use an array either vertically or horizontally. You can also use a 2-dimensional array here. An index really has a lot of flexibility in that sense. So let's see what happens when we actually expand our data and add a little bit more here. So now we can say, all right, let's come back and we'll select our entire data from borrower ID over to loan status. I'm going to use F4 to lock it. And now we see that it's asking for a row number. So let's say we want row 2, but this next argument it asks for is a column number. For example, I might want column 3. So in this case, I'm asking for the second row and the third column, which in this case should be the AL. It's in the second row, 1, 2, third column. Now we realize we need to change our inputs a little bit. So let's go ahead and insert a row, and we're going to change this to row column. So we have row 2, column 3. Let's update our inputs here. Now we see we have a more dynamic formula that allows us to pull kind of any data from within this array that we've given it. So let's try a couple more examples. So if we change the row to 1 and the column to 5, let's check out what we get. We get on time. So row 1, column 5, that's where that on time is coming from. As another example, let's say that we ask for row 6, column 2. In this case, we should get Claire, which is down here in row 6, column 2. Now what happens if we come and say, let's get row 7? All right, row 7 does not exist in our array, and now we see a reference error. This hashtag REF exclamation point, we call that a reference error, and that tells us that it can't access that cell. That reference that you're trying to get in row 7 just does not exist in that array. All right, so one more example. Let's go ahead and try to change our row back to row 6, column 2 still. But what happens if we accidentally move our array a little bit? So let's say we start our array, instead of in B6, we accidentally start it in B7 and go all the way to F12. So now we've accidentally shifted our array down by 1. What do we get for our answer? Well, it's a 0. And it's a 0 that's reflecting the fact that this 6th row of that array, right, we've changed our array now, so we're in the 6th row is row 12. We're still in the 2nd column, but there's nothing there. And so when we see zeros back, we have to be really careful because those could be true zeros, and that the number of 0 is in the database, or it could be there's no data coming back. So we really have to be careful about specifying the array that we're using.